Hello everyone, welcome to Planet Holistic. I'm your host Todd Schaefer, and with me is my co-host
Kieran Schaefer, and this is Planet Holistic. Did you already say that?
I did.
Well, that's all right. It was so nice we need to say it twice. So guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to talk a little bit about rejection. Dun, dun, dun. And we have all been rejected at some point in our lives or another. And it's important to get you some tools, get you some insights, get you some wisdom when it comes to rejection, especially if you are a writer or a speaker or somebody that's wanting to put your message out to the world. And if you are a Planet Holistic listener, then you may already have the idea or may already be a holistic practitioner and are wanting to get your message out there. But maybe when you were in 6th grade and you stood up and raised your hand, everybody laughed at you when you didn't have the right answer. And that can be enough for you not to share that wisdom in your life. So if this is you, then you'll want to keep listening. What do you think about rejection, Todd?
I think rejection rules our lives in a lot of ways. I mean, I think every decision that we have made in our lives has come from, love, but also guilt, and the fear of anything that guilt sort of brings up for us. Our major decisions in life are usually based on safety, and we say that it's other things, but a lot of times it's safety. I mean, 90% of us is subconscious, and then the 10% of us is just justifying the 90%. So fear of rejection is the reason we don't go after bigger things. It's the reason, a lot of writers aren't published yet, or haven't published solo books yet. It's the reason we choose our mates and our friends. It really does have a major impact on us, that fear of rejection. It's the reason we don't go places, just to feel like, when we have a fear of not being accepted when we go somewhere with a friend, and just hoping that the people in that room are going to accept us. So that's all fear of rejection, and it may depend on the day. I mean, when we're feeling really great, then obviously that fear of rejection, or fear of feeling not good enough, which is all guilt, might not be as much of an issue that day, but it's still there. It's still there, and it's a theme that we all work to overcome as best as possible. So it is there, but it doesn't have to own us. It's something that we can consciously and deliberately work through. And, having our families, having our support systems and things like that, and just understanding what we want to get out of life and how we want to live without the fear of rejection that we all have to rule the way that we live is something that we all should shoot for. And a lot of us do shoot for, to the best of our ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, rejection is such an interesting thing because there's that fear, and it comes from that deep. It comes from the lizard brain, actually. It comes from being afraid of being killed with sticks and rocks. It comes from watching people step out of bounds and say, "We're not going to take it anymore," and. We have the MLK Juniors and, all of the different people throughout history. I mean, even the Joan of Arcs and the people that have said, I'm going to do this anyway, even if it's scary. And then watching them get killed. So our brains learn that it's not safe. And then we also learn really, really early that we don't know everything. And we are taught that to put ourselves out there is really dangerous. So how do we fix it? My thing is, and what I do to fix a fear of rejection is, one, I find my tribe. I find the people and I find the situations that feel the best to me, that I know I'll be accepted in, and I start there. Because why go into the lion's den? There is absolutely no reason, if you love classical music, for you to end up in a mosh pit. There's absolutely no reason to do that. So go where you feel safe, where you feel comfortable. Start there. And then listen to people, talk to people, connect with people, and then broaden it from there. Go into places that could potentially feel safer, like Facebook groups, uplifting Facebook groups, not groups that you're going to feel beat down by. I found something really interesting when I was going out onto Facebook groups when I first started our publishing company, and I found that different writing groups do not lend to being supportive. They are brutal, unkind, mean, and a lot of the comments are incorrect. One of the things that I've heard in these writing groups is you have to have a publicist in order to write a book. No, you don't. You have to have an agent in order to write a book, or to sell a book, or to have a book. No, you don't. You do not have to sell your book to anyone else in order to have it published. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You can do it all on your own if you want to, or you can go some of these other traditional routes. So there's a lot of misinformation out there that just lends more and more to that feeling of being rejected. But you don't have to take that. You are allowed to go into places where you feel safe.
Agreed. And I think, this, we could probably do many podcasts on this topic, but this kind of brings up one of my favorite topics, which is the Myers-Briggs system, and how many of the type of personalities we attract are going to be NFs, or intuitive feelers, because Kira and I are intuitive feelers. So your NFs are going to be your INFJs and your ENFJs, your INFPs and your ENFPs. And and if it's not exactly those personality types, they're at least going to be feelers, like SFs, like sensor feelers. If they're not intuitive feelers, they'll be sensor feelers. And what I found in life is that the world really isn't designed for intuitive feelers. It's any kind of intuitive feeler thing is usually a grassroots type of an effort, in my experience. And when we try to do things that the rest of the world does, we're stepping into a sensor thinker kind of world, which is why when you start, you live in your own skin. You know what I'm talking about. If you're an intuitive feeler, you know what I'm talking about, because you know that you need to feel safe in a tribe to do big decisions. And you know that you're a minority when it comes to the largely sensing, thinking world, that when you ask advice to people randomly, they're going to say things like, you need this, you need to have publicists, you need to have an agent, blah, 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 blah. It's gross.
Yeah.
And that's because that is a sensing thinker person who says, here's what you need to do to experience a certain amount of success and have a certain type of result. What they don't understand is that if they're a sensor thinker, number one, won't recognize an NF, and number two, automatically assumes that an NF wants the same things that a sensor thinker wants.
Right. Yeah. A sensor thinker is going to want certain type of results, money-based,
right? Very
little heart, and also an NF is going to want to just get their message out there.
Right, exactly. And they want to feel good doing it. They want to have a good experience. They want to feel supported, and they want to and maybe have bigger levels of success. But how they get there is very important to an NF.
Yeah, they're not going to walk all over people to get there.
Not
they
at
just
all.
Won't.
Not at all. Not at all. And that's where the fear of rejection and guilt comes back in. So, navigating in a ST-dominated world as an NF feels like you don't really belong until you find your tribe or your tribes. So being able to do things in a bigger way and feeling that call to step up and to be an author or do whatever you're wanting to do, it is important for an NF to have that kind of support. So, I think when we started As You Wish Publishing, we didn't have that intention per se, but we did know that we were going to attract people like us who were going to be intuitive feelers. And, if we were a typical ST publisher, there probably wouldn't be a community, and there probably wouldn't be a bunch of people supporting each other throughout that process, because your intuitive feelers, like I said, need to feel good during the process. They need to feel that it's right. They need to feel safe and feel supported, and not compromise themselves on the way to success. Whereas your sensor thinker world is not concerned so much by the process. They're concerned about the ROI and the result, and if I'm going to get what I intended to get out of this by doing it. That right there is a short explanation of just how different personality types think and how they make those different decisions. Your feelers are going to be more process-oriented. Your thinkers are going to be more results-oriented. So either personality type is going to want to publish a book, sure, but how they get there and what they expect are two very different stories.
I completely agree. I think it's your time, your opportunities that come in front of you to set aside that fear, because the other part of it is, yes, I'm going to surround myself with supportive and loving people. That's just who I am. I was the only child. It's, I just, played with my stuffed animals, and, they didn't talk back too much, which was good. But ultimately, I still move through the fear. If it's important enough to me, I'm going to push myself through that fear of rejection and put it out there anyway. We recently did a book, a multi-author book, and I was getting the submissions in, and it was over time, and what happened was I was connecting with people and realizing that some of them were having some really serious anxiety and fear. And they also didn't understand that we don't reject their articles. We would never reject their articles. And they didn't get that. And so when I'm talking to them, and all of a sudden I hear their voice shift and change when I say, at As You Wish Publishing, we don't reject anyone here. Your articles are going to be in a book. They suddenly feel the sense of relief. And they even say that. They say this I feel so much better now knowing that. And then they just wonder, is it good enough? And it always is. I have never got an article where I'm like, yeah, that's not good enough. It's not going into this book. And we've worked with 100, I think we're at 185 authors right now. And so that we've worked with. So there's something to really take away when it comes to this, because there are organizations, there are people, there are situations, there are groups where you will not be rejected, that you are loved, that you are wanted, that you are enough. And finding those places is not as hard as you think. So go out, find those places, but also be willing to take the risks.
And that is all the time we have today. Great episode.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm Kira Schaefer.
And this is Todd Schaefer.
And this is Planet Holistic.
Bye-bye.